Hi everyone. Yeah, welcome to the stream. Is this mic working all right? Let me know if you can't hear me, obviously. Yeah, it should be an interesting one tonight. As I've read through everything I wanted to read out, I've decided to do this in a two-part because there's going to be too much stuff. Oh, the bloody glare on my glasses is driving me nuts. I'm going to do it in two parts because there's so much to read out. It's just too much in one go. But it's really interesting because there's a part I want to read out that goes into the reasons why the establishment wanted to bust them so badly and all that sort of thing. And I want to read that out, but it would drag on for more than an hour if I read it all out tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read up until Mick's trial. So, well, they all got tried at the same time, but Mick and the first guy got tried. No, I think Mick got tried on the first day, and then it was Keith Richards and the other dude on the other day. Or no, I've got that wrong. I think. Sorry, Robert Evans and Mick Jagger were tried on the first day. I think. I'm going to read it out anyway. But yeah, but it's a strange situation. Just been reading. Hello everyone. Yeah, hello Frankie. I'm drinking the liquor Frankie bought me. Look at this weird stuff. You can call it that. Calvados. But yeah, it's an interesting story. People have been saying in the chat, talking about it. There's all sorts of a fat one and a cup of tea. It's the best one, isn't it? Yeah, and well, I just decided to pour a drink before I started. Hopefully, it won't sound too slurred on the reading now. But yeah, it's a really strange situation that unfolded here, and the reasons why as well. We'll get into the reasons why it happened. And I was going to read out the Stanley Booth book because that's like the go-to book for like the Rolling Stones. But I had never heard of this Tony Scaduto book until I read the Mae Brussell thing. And Mae Brussell quotes it in her essay about Operation Chaos. And I found this book, and it goes into far more detail than the Stanley Booth book does. So, yeah, it will be interesting, yeah. Or am I from in England? Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Face Understands. Where am I from in England? I'm on the Isle of Wight now. I was born in Woking in Surrey. But, yeah, I've lived on the Isle of Wight most of my life. But my heritage is kind of weird. My dad's from Stockton-on-Tees, up in the northeast of England, and my mother was from Hackney in London. But I was born in Woking in Surrey, and we moved to the Isle of Wight when I was about 10. So yeah, weird heritage. But yeah, I'm basically from the Isle of Wight. I've lived on the Isle of Wight since I was 10. So yeah, you'd say yeah. Yeah. Oh, and people are asking me to cover Brian James's death, the thing about Frank Thorogood and all that, and that's an interesting story as well. So yeah. Yeah, Paul Weller came from Woking, yeah. Paul Weller from Woking, and War of the Worlds, part of War of the Worlds is set there as well. Horsell Common is part of Woking, where the Martians land, where they find the first pod and the first person gets lasered. That's Horsell Common, which is in Woking. That's the other thing Woking's famous for. Hackney Posse, you're from West Ham, wow. Yeah, my mum was from Hackney. Hi, Courtney, yeah, I'm doing fine, actually, yeah. Great, it's been nice weather here. For a fucking change. It was really depressing for, because it's meant to be hot at the moment. Normally it would be, but, the weather's changing and it with climate change and all that. Oh, do you like Paul Weller? Yeah, I like Paul Weller. And the Jam as well, but Paul Weller himself is also a good artist, isn't he? A lot of my friends covering. Yeah, looking good on the liquid nutrition, yeah. I know there's a filter now. Yeah, StreamYard, it's filtering my face. I've got a filter on my face. Do I look younger? Oh, you work for the Hackney Council? That's interesting, yeah. Oh, and another thing I wanted to say to everyone, now YouTube has changed its lower limit for when you can start to monetize, basically. But there's something I could do that might be fun where I'm a live stream channel. People might want it. If I set up channel memberships, I could set up a really low membership price. So it'll be something like $2 or $1 a month. And for that, I could do custom emojis in the chat. So you'd have like, I could do, like obviously Manson family emojis or whatever, like you could get custom emojis for that. And I could do different levels of membership and do streams, but private streams or whatever, but also But I thought even if I just did the one level, you could have the custom emojis, and that would be fun. People would like it. Yeah. In fact, the event for the launch of the UK edition of the Manson File, which I haven't got right next to me now, I'd have to go and grab it. But I attended. That was in Hackney. That was in a little shop in Hackney. Crazy looking shop as well. I should have photographed the interior of the place. So there was a crazy painting on the wall. Yeah. Well, lots of crazy paintings on the wall. It was a really interesting shop. And the whole thing, I don't know if it was filmed. I hope it was filmed, and there's a video of it. Yeah, because Nicholas did a Buddhist inauguration ceremony for the book and everything in this little weird well, you could describe it as like a pagan occult shop sort of thing in Hackney. You saw a squirrel come back from the shop. We actually have red squirrels down here. Yeah, that's it. I could do the devil text emoji and all the different spaced out. That's really weird spaced out picture of him where he's going like that, isn't it? As he's walking into court, I could fucking do that as an emoji and all those sorts of things. And like I say, and it's a voluntary thing. But if you paid this a month, you could get these emojis basically. But yeah, if you're interested, sort of let me know. I might do a poll or something on the channel. But if you would like that, it's just something that makes it a bit more fun for people, and I wouldn't be making a huge amount of money, obviously, because I think YouTube takes 30% of all the revenue. It's just yeah, but it would just be something that I could offer that's a perk if you pay, sort of thing. And it was like, yeah, you would have emojis in the chat. But yeah, I would just start showing you this blog anyway. Well, you've given up smoking. Well, Frankie bought me this as well. The same guy that bought me that. This is my vaporizer pen, so I don't smoke tobacco anymore. I'm doing this now instead. Anyone else vape? Got my e-liquid here, fancy one. Look, what is it? Seriously, donuts, strawberry cream. Nice. Yeah, that's it. I only do one show a week. I'm thinking about possibly doing more. Now I've broadened the subject matter of my channel a little bit. I could possibly do more shows a week. And that's it. Well, this show as well, because I've got to read out so much, I'm going to do it in 2 parts, like I said. So I'm only going to read up until mixed trial, and then I'll read out the rest. And I'm probably going to do that on Wednesday night as well, because I'm off work at the moment, so I can fit in some more streams at the moment. Sorry, just trying to get these comments off the stream. Yeah, well, I do as well. Don't worry. Yeah. Oh, yeah, look, you can set it on a mode where you don't have to push the button as well, Frankie. Do you know that? Look. Yeah. Just put on it and you're not pressing the button. It is, yeah, and it adds insult to injury because it costs you tons of money and it kills you, and it's really smelly, and there's dirty ashtrays that you're always knocking over, and it's just horrific, isn't it? It's like, oh god, it is just a terrible thing, isn't it? There is in that, yeah, but it's only because I'm coming off smoking, obviously. So like once I don't smoke so much, and because I did get into vaping with one of those big mod boxes, and so like where I was never going to give it up, sort of thing. But I want to try and like taper off and not vape in the end, essentially. Yeah, it is a few people, yeah, I think make it, don't they? Yeah. It's become more more of a legal grey area for medical use as well. They don't go after you for possession anymore. They would only go after you if they thought you was growing for commercial reasons or whatever sort of thing. It's like a weird grey area at the moment in the UK, and it's weird. I can't believe they haven't legalized it, actually realizing how much tax money the American government makes, because apparently in America they pay 50% tax just for the right to grow it legally. So like fucking, you'd think that our government would get onto that. And hi Danny. Yeah, I was going to show you these pictures. Pain's here, obviously. My moderator. And Danny, you're the moderator now as well. You finally managed to give you. I can't believe he put you on timeout just as I was trying to give you a wrench as he did it, and your comment vanished as I was trying to click on it. It's like, oh, fuck's sake, Paul. Yeah. Oh, you have no nicotine in yours now. Frankie's got down to no nicotine in his. Yeah. Oh, jolly good. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still on the nicotine at the moment, but I'm going to taper down the nicotine and eventually probably stop completely smoking. Just for the sake of smoking. Yeah. I took off the reflection. I hate the reflection. I've got OCD and I hate the reflection in my eyes when I'm editing stuff, when I'm looking at it and I can see the reflection in my glasses. It really bothers me. So I finally took the things off. I'll probably put them on, but I don't need them for reading. They're distance, so it doesn't matter. I can actually read without them. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm hoping to interview Nicholas next time he's in the UK. I'm going to borrow my dad's decent camera, and hopefully I will do an in-person interview with him because he comes to the UK. And I want to ask him. Obviously, I'm going to get him to talk about the Manson case, but also he knows stuff I don't know. Well, I haven't asked him yet if he wants to talk about it publicly, so I won't say it. But there's things he's told me that are also interesting, yeah. About other things that are relevant and interesting to social history. So I've added that to my list of things I cover on this channel. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's usually so cold. Thank you. Yeah, it's because it's usually so cold here. I'm just always having to wear a sweatshirt. You know what I mean? So I'm just constantly yeah. Now it's actually a bit warmer. Yeah, I want to show you these photos though. Yeah, get into this because I've got a lot to read out as well tonight. And like I said, I'm going to do it in 2 parts. This blog is brilliant. It's called Diet Coke and Sympathy, and she's got a collection of photographs of Anita Pallenberg and Marianne Faithfull, basically. This is the blog. And she's got disclaimers on it just saying these are all ones she scanned out of books and magazines, etc., unless stated she doesn't own them and all this. And I'll leave the link to this in the description if you're watching this on playback. But yeah, this is and I'll go like this. So this is inside Redlands, the house, I think. And this is this is Keith Richards outside Redlands, the weekend of the bust. She says the weekend of the bust. So not sure if that's the actual morning, but as you get on, because you find out when I start reading. Yeah, how does he end up? Yeah, that is just him falling about. But they was on acid the morning of the bust, and the way he's falling about and laughing here, I wonder if this is the morning. And they're supposed to have gone down through the woods and to the beach and all that during the day. So I wonder if this is him tripping the day they were walking to the beach. So I'll leave the link to this blog post so you can find all these pictures. I'm assuming that's Robert Evans. I may be wrong. The other guy he stood there with. He was nicked for possession of heroin, I think, if that is Robert Evans. And this is the guy's manservant that you hear mentioned. And this dude, this is Schneiderman, the weird Canadian or American dude. No one knew who he was. That is David Schneiderman. He just showed up there. But we'll get into him. I think I'm going to read that out tonight, yeah. Yeah, amazing collection of pictures. I think there's a couple more. Yeah, and I won't go any further in the pictures yet because we're getting to the day after the busting. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Oh, did I say dude's fucking name? Did I get his name wrong? Probably, yeah. I'm gonna read his name out, whatever his fucking name is, in a minute. But the art dealer or whatever the fuck he was. But he was also nicked for possession of heroin. He had a load of heroin on him. We'll go for that one. And I'll start to read out the story of the bust. Oh, yeah, and I must warn you as well, there's discriminatory language at one point, since we live in such a woke time. And this was like a book that was obviously written in the very early 70s. Different times, whatever. Anyway, right, I'll start reading it now. So this is the day of the bust. 8 in the evening. Marianne, wrapped in a tawny-coloured fur rug, is stretched out on a couch in the enormous drawing room in Redlands, the mansion that Keith had bought some months before. Marianne had taken a bath after tramping through the woods all day and running along the beach with Jagger and their friends. She didn't want to get back into her dirty jeans and blouse, so she wrapped herself in the rug. enjoying the sensual feel of the skin against her body. Jagger was at Marianne's feet, Keith and Michael Cooper in the overstuffed chairs. They're all watching television with the sound turned off and a Who album on the turntable. When you're stoned, as they had been since early morning, there is no better way to watch television. The supercharged beat roaring out of the amplifiers and the visual flashes and the electric scan, the million tiny dots that create a television picture. The rock sound and the visuals help keep that high edge on so deliciously. They've been dropping acid all day, smoking hash, and it was such a gas to continue to come down slowly with the help of the electronic light from the TV, gliding off from a trip that had started a short time ago, after sunup, more than 12 hours before. Henry Schneiderman, a sinister American or Canadian, he had so many passports no one was certain of his origin, was the first to hear the knocking on the front door. A heavy rapping against the thick oak. "Should I get the door?" he asked. Designer Cliff Baldwin, not his real name. As the caller became more insistent in his rapping, Baldwin lifted his eyes from the TV screen, where an American gangster was trying to prolong his inevitable death at the hands of the police by hiding in an amusement park. The flashing lights of the carousel, speeded up by the film editor, increased the visual assault on their senses. He smiled at the question in an acid daydream and said, "Don't bother. Gentlemen, ring up first. It must be a tradesman." When Keith realised someone was trying to come into his house, he went to the door. A small, thick-set man in a trench coat stood there, and behind him were more than a dozen police officers, several of them women. The man at the door, Chief Inspector Gordon Dinley, held a piece of paper in front of Keith. "Are you the owner and occupier of these premises?" he asked. "I live here," Keith said. "Are you the owner?" "What, the owner? Yeah, I own it all, the whole bloomin' house and the land down to the beach." "Here then, read this," the Chief Inspector demanded. What? Keith asked. "Read what?" "I'll read it then." And Keith could barely understand his words. Search warrant, dated today, Sunday, 12th day of February, 1967. Suspicion of possession of drugs. Violation of Drugs Act 1964. Suspicion of permitting premises to be used for the purpose of smoking cannabis. Violation of Section 5. It shall not be lawful. What? Keith kept asking. He turned, floated through the foyer to the drawing room, followed by a battalion of police. "Look, there's lots of little ladies and gentlemen outside. They're coming in," Keith announced to his guests. "They have this funny piece of paper, all sorts of legal rubbish." "We're being raided," Michael said, giggling at the absurdity of all the police officers standing there, gawking at this very beautiful blonde woman stretched out on the couch, wearing only a fur rug. He walked over to Marianne. "We either play it sort of trippy, have some fun with it, or we're all going to freak out." Marianne smiled, the most seductive stage smile she could command, and let the rug slip a little so that the part of her thighs and a hint of her breasts were exposed, playing it trippy. And the policemen either turned their heads away in embarrassment or shoved the embarrassed out of the way to get further into the room to obtain a better view. Jagger laughed, and Marianne believed he felt the way she did. What a decadent scene these coppers are seeing. A half-naked blonde, joss sticks burning all around and filling the air with a sticky sweet aroma. A Moroccan servant in a caftan waiting on them. The utter decadence of it all must be amazing to them. "Please shut off the gramophone," the inspector asked Keith. "No way, I'll lower the sound, that's all," Keith said. But someone had beaten him to it. The Who album was replaced by another, and when Keith heard the record some jester had placed on the turntable, he slid into a thick Moroccan cushion. Michael thought, "He's giggling like one of the insane in a Fellini film." From the speakers came Bob Dylan's laughing, exuberant voice, and they played Rainy Day Women. Dylan's surrealistic songs growled and whined through the Redlands for the next hour, warning of geeks who tried to steal your mind and your freedom, warning against the hypocrisy of men and women such as these, the police, the enforcers of society's straitjacket. As he stood by the French doors, Michael thought, the whole scene is daft. These straight middle-class people with their jaws hanging open, trying to cop a peek at Marianne's body. The fuzz are as confused by this scene as we are. Michael had wandered over the top end of the room, trying to look inconspicuous. He hoped the police wouldn't notice him, and wished he could risk getting his camera, take photos of this farce being acted out in front of him. Keith was standing in front of a policewoman. Her foot was on the edge of a cushion on which he'd sat to recover from his giggles. She was trying to get him to understand what she was saying, but Keith appeared to Michael unable to focus on her request. Apparently she was asking for the right to search someone or something. "Would you mind stepping off the Moroccan cushion?" Keith said, "because you're ruining the tapestries." The woman said, "Oh, pardon me," and turned to Marianne. "Please come upstairs with me," she asked. "I must search you." "I have nothing to search," she said, flashing the rug open again, coppers wrenching their necks. The policewoman insisted. Marianne started up the stairs with her, then stopped. "Mick, Mick," she cried, her voice filling the house as if she were projecting it from the stage of the royal court. "Mick, help! This dykey woman wants to search me." Another flash of her body under the rug. "What does this bloody lesbian want from me? Where is she going to search me? I have no clothes on." Flash, the rug opens again, and Jagger becomes convulsed, sitting on the floor, laughing hysterically. Marianne turned and danced the rest of the way up the staircase, dancing to Dylan's voice. Michael had begun moving around, wandering down one corridor and up another into this strange house filled with little rooms stuck in odd places. "Keep moving and the fuzz will leave me alone." He materialized in the doorway to the drawing room as Marianne shouted from the top of the stairs, "I'm going to be raped by this lady copper." And Michael thought, the scene is driving the fuzz out of their skulls. They just can't understand our acid behavior. They don't even know about acid, yet they're tripping themselves. They're picking up on the acid vibes coming off us. They're sort of stoned themselves from our high and from Dylan. Dylan's voice from the speakers angrily spitting out his song. "He's sure got a lot of gall to be so useless and all." The police didn't seem terribly confused by it all. Did seem terribly confused by it all. But they tried to go about their business as if this was reality, said one officer to another. "That strong, sweet smell, that's cannabis." He lifted a tin labelled incense and said, "This could be cannabis. Take it." He lifted a pipe that was on the table, sniffed it, and placed it in his pocket. "Cannabis," he said. "All that incense is being burned to hide the smell of cannabis. It never works, does it?" Michael now sat on a cushion in the top corner of the drawing room on a different part of his trip. He thought, God, it's like a Charlie Chaplin movie scene, a Chaplin picture. These dumb country cops don't know what they're doing. All these guys in freaky clothes and this chick in a fur rug showing her body. And Dylan is like in the room with us. He started to sing with Dylan softly so as not to draw attention to himself. Inside the museums, Infinity goes up on trial, he thought. I'm going to go up on trial if I don't split from here too, right soon. But he couldn't move. The Chaplin film was too intriguing. Marianne returned down the stairs. "I'm clean," she said, a flash of her body beneath the rug. And a copper whispered to another, "See her unusual behaviour. She's likely under the influence of cannabis." Another officer was holding Jagger's green jacket. "Is this yours?" he asked, and Jagger admitted that it was. The policeman went through his pockets and from one pulled out a small chunk of hash. Marianne gaped. Michael covered his eyes and thought, I've got a lot of stuff in my pockets. We've all got enough to hang us. But the officer, with exaggerated distaste, shoved the hash back into the jacket. He seemed to believe it was a piece of dirt and didn't want to soil his fingers. Michael began laughing and quickly covered his mouth so he wouldn't be heard. But he couldn't hold down the laughter. Several coppers suddenly stopped their rummaging through the drawers and stood up, straight, almost to attention, deeply offended by Dylan's voice. "Queen Mary, she's my friend. Yes, I believe I'll go to see her again." Two policemen stood before the chair in which Schneiderman was sitting, asking about the small suitcase beside him. "That's mine," Schneiderman said. "Very good, sir," one of the officers said. "We must search it." The suitcase, which contained several pounds of heroin, cannabis, pills, acid, DMT, every herb and chemical to stab or stroke the mind, was opened gently by the officer, who seemed to expect filthy underclothes or socks to tumble out. What he saw instead were dozens of packages wrapped in aluminium foil. He started to unwrap one. "That's film," Schneiderman said. "I'm a movie maker. And that's unprocessed film. Please don't open it. You'll expose it and my movie will be lost. A year's work." The officer said, "Oh, certainly, sir," and closed the suitcase. He then searched Schneiderman's pockets and found a tin and an envelope with pieces of hash. "I'm very sorry, sir," he said, "but we must take these for the laboratory." Another policeman apologetically searched Robert Fraser, an art dealer and obviously a gentleman, through the hubbub. Marianne thought she heard him say to Fraser, "I'm so very sorry, sir. You're obviously a cut above this lot, but we must do this." Fraser was a heroin addict and had 24 jacks in an exquisitely crafted antique pill box. "What's in here?" the officer asked. Fraser replied, "Medicine for my diabetes. I do have a prescription." The officer closed the box and handed it back to Fraser, then thought better of it. "I'm afraid I must take one of these packets of medicine for tests," he said. "I'm very sorry to trouble you this way, sir." He then searched Clifford Baldwin, found a $125 stick of hash in his pocket, and returned it to him. Michael had been watching the charade and was stunned by the realization that came over him. They want the stones. They want Mick and Keith. They haven't even looked at me. It's as if I don't exist. They're not bothering Robert or Clifford or Schneiderman. They just want to get the stones. That's their whole thing, get the stones. But they're such bumblers they didn't even know that's hash in Mick's jacket. The police were almost ready to leave. They had found 4 pet pills that Jagger said were his, bought legally in Italy for air sickness and the like. And they had a pipe that had been lying on Keith's table and obviously smelled of dope. And they still hadn't gone near Michael. Half the force were already outside, and Michael was wandering around the zany corridors of Redlands again. When a policeman crashed into him, "Who are you, sir?" the officer asked. "Michael Cooper. I just dropped in to visit." The copper said, "Very good, sir," and left without bothering to search him. Keith stood at the front door saying goodbye to his visitors in uniform. They had taken the pep pills, Fraser's jack of heroin, a little bit of hash, but the enormous quantity of dope in the suitcase had been overlooked. The last officer to leave, a detective sergeant, told Keith, "Should laboratory tests prove that dangerous drugs have been used on these premises and not relate to any individual, you will be held responsible." "I see, they'll pin it all on me," Keith said. Jagger rang up one of the lawyers for the Stones and told him about the police raid. No arrests, some little evidence taken, and the police were total amateurs, real bunglers. They took some pep pills that he and Marion had been given in Italy. They're sold over the counter in Italy, all quite legal. And he had talked to his doctor in London, and the doctor had said it was okay to use them, so that's no problem. And Keith didn't really have to know some people in his house were carrying dope, right? "But Mick, these pills are really mine," Marianne said when he rang off. "I'll take responsibility for them." "No, you won't," Jagger said. "We got the pills together. I talked to my doctor about it when we got back." "But you used all your pills." "They're the same pills, Marianne. Maybe you've been carrying them. Maybe they're yours, but they're mine. Do you understand? Besides, it'll never go that far." The decision was made. Head off the arrest, buy off the coppers. Keith later talked about it. What usually happens is that someone gets busted and the papers have it the next day. For a week they held it back to see how much bread they could get off us. And Keith told Michael that they expected everything to be settled quickly and quietly. Someone had a friend who knew bent cops. It would cost them several £1,000s, but the money would guarantee no publicity, no arrests. But something went wrong. Early in March, police announced that the summons had been issued against Jagger, Keith, and Robert Fraser. No mention of Schneiderman or anyone else who had drugs. That a hearing was set for May 10th. One of the Stones' lawyers told Jagger and Keith, "It really seems weird. They really want to do it to you." And Keith, "Unfortunately, none of us knew what to do to bung the bread to, so went via the slightly the wrong people, and it didn't get up all the way. Mick can tell you how much it was his bread, quite a lot of bread. In the States, the cops are bent, and if you want to get into it, okay, you can go to them and say, 'How much do you want?' and they'll drop it. In England, you can drop 50 grand, and the next week they'll bust you and say, 'Oh, it went into the wrong hands. I'm sorry, it didn't go to the right man.' It's insane." So, all right, yeah, bloody hell, not to unpack there. So, yeah, Schneiderman sat there with a huge suitcase full of heroin, all sorts of drugs, all wrapped in tinfoil, and told them it was film, and so they just didn't unwrap it. They just shut his suitcase and said, "All right, sir," and let him go. And oh god, yeah, everything's. Oh yeah, and I've heard this from other people that were busted in the 60s. Right, the cops in those days were not trained in what drugs looked like. They would totally, yeah, they didn't know what hash looked like. They would overlook hash. They didn't. It was fucking hilarious. Yeah, apparently they would totally walk past big piles of drugs. They weren't. Didn't know what to look for. Lots of it, yeah, and no one actually got arrested as well, which seems odd, doesn't it? But we'll get into it in a bit. I'm going to read it out. There was a reason. In fact, I need to take a break. I'm sorry to do this in the middle of a stream. I don't normally, but it won't take me a second. I just had to pee. Trying to read all that as well. Bloody hell. But yes, well, it is a crazy, crazy situation, even so far. Marianne Faithfull, and she was only naked because she'd just go out of the bath and she didn't want to put her dirty clothes back on again. There was nothing weird going on, no weird reason why she was naked or anything like Yeah. Apparently the cops did not know what hash looked like back in those days, yeah, and so like you could fucking have like a size of hash that was in a piece of hash that had 9 bar of hash, like a 9 ounce bar of hash. That probably could have got you sent down for a long time in those days, and the cops just didn't even know what it was. They would just overlook it. Yeah. The golden days of possessing cannabis in the UK. Yeah, that's the other thing as well. Yeah, you could just disguise it as chocolate or whatever. Yeah, chop it up into little bits and fucking wrap it in chocolate wrappers or whatever. Yeah. I just looking what was the next bit I was going to read, because they get into the reason why the bust probably happened, and it wasn't like the government as such. It was the press. It was actually to do with the press. The News of the World article. They agreed that the only logical possibility was that the newspaper's investigators had seen Brian so wiped out that he would sit in blazes, downing black bombers and French blues, whatever the hell pills he was on now, and told their readers it was Jagger. Either they mistakenly thought they were talking to you because they're press people are so straight and they wouldn't know the difference, Marianne said, or they deliberately lied that it was you because they feel Brian isn't a large enough figure and they'd rather pin it on you. That's like talking to Ringo and saying it was John Lennon. Right, I'm going to sue the bastards. And Jagger announced the afternoon that the article appeared that he had issued a writ of libel against the News of the World. Now Jagger and Keith had been arrested and could be forced to trial. As they all talked over the raid at Redlands, they grew more certain of the News of the World had been responsible. Instead of trying to defend the libel action, the paper decided to catch Jagger with drugs, even if they had to be planted. They sat around the Stones office, most of them who'd been at Redlands, trying to fit all the pieces together, especially the role of Henry Schneiderman, who'd not been searched by the police and who'd been allowed to leave the country. Jagger's private inquiries had disclosed that Schneiderman had fled. Who is this cat? Jagger asked Keith. Said he had met him in America the year before, just some kind of hanger-on among the bands there, and very recently he'd turned up in London. I know a little about Schneiderman, Michael said. Strange guy. He's the reason the whole party at Redlands came together, you know. Keith hadn't known, actually. All he remembered was that Clifford Baldwin had said there was some American around with some really good acid, and perhaps they could take it down at Redlands one weekend. On a trip to the country, where they wouldn't have to worry about the narcs from Chelsea Drug Squad, who were busting everyone. There were even rumours of frame-ups and extortion by the police. Keith had agreed to Clifford's plan and had gone off to Munich for a few days, and when he returned, he was told the party was on. Schneiderman indeed had outrageous acid from San Francisco. Keith rounded up Jagger and Marion and a couple of other friends, and on Saturday afternoon they drove down in a convoy of cars, Clifford bringing his Moroccan servant to cook, and Schneiderman bringing the acid and dope. Fucking Schneiderman and his dope, Keith said. Schneiderman's been in London before. I met him before this, Michael said. What I understand is he started off in America, pushing in a small way, among other things, and then he got into some other sort of scene. I think he's more than just an informer for the News of the World. I think it's more mysterious than that. The CIA? Someone asked. Well, the way he got out of the country so fast and just disappeared. I'm sure he works for something more than just the News of the World. Perhaps the CIA. I certainly have the feeling he's working for the American government. That's too fucking far out. You got any evidence? Keith said. Nothing solid, but I met the guy a few times and I never liked him. He had this sort of insidious thing about him. I can't quite put my finger on it. Sort of the way he had of getting into other people's scenes, taking advantage of people. He took advantage of you, of the Stones. But evidence, well, there's one funny thing. He had a Canadian passport and an American passport, and at least one more from another country. He let me believe he had a dozen of them, and he was really bending the law all over the world. Another thing about him, he's bisexual. He was living with a friend of mine. Bisexuals. I always had the feeling there was something not quite right about the guy. I don't mean the sex trip, but like he was on a James Bond thing, the CIA or something. Seriously. The only reason he was there was he had the stuff, Keith said. Otherwise I would have never put up with him. But there's another possibility. He paused a moment. Maybe they got hold of someone who worked for us. Maybe one of the chauffeurs or something. That's how they knew we were going down there to trip. After discussing it, for hours, they came to the conclusion that Schneiderman could only have been a News of the World plant, that he helped pull the party together for one reason, to give the newspaper proof that Jagger was into drugs, and that so that his libel suit would fail. So you see, that's the reason they had to stage the bust, was because he was going to sue the News of the World, which is a big newspaper in this country for a long time, for saying he'd taken acid. Yes, that's something you have to have read earlier in the book to understand. Yes, but they wrote an article saying he had taken acid, quoting Mick Jagger as saying he'd taken acid, and he had never said that to them. So he was going to sue them, saying I've never taken acid. So they needed proof that he took drugs, so they could so that his libel suit would fall. Yeah, it got it was the one that was associated with all the phone hacking. It got done away with. But it's Rupert Murdoch's paper, isn't it? One of the many newspapers Rupert Murdoch owns. Yeah. But yeah, very big newspaper in this country for many years. And the media is controlled by the government, isn't it? And they're trying to manipulate us constantly with like propaganda through the media and through what they do with celebrities and what celebrities say and do. They're trying to influence us constantly, aren't they? Yeah, Rupert Murdoch. That was what I said. What did I not say Rupert Murdoch? Did I call him something else? Sorry, I meant Rupert Murdoch. But yeah, so people, oh God, sorry, I went down the wrong way. Other people that were there thought he had CIA vibes, but Keith Richards seemed to doubt it. And so the Stones were more convinced he was just sent by the News of the World, the Schneiderman dude that got to walk away with all the, the drugs. But yes, crazily, on this blog, I'll scroll down at the end. I left a comment to tell the owner of the blog that I was going to show this blog post and obviously credit her blog. And she's left a comment saying she has information about him and she was close to him and she'll email me. I assume it's her. It's not the name that's given in the bio for the blog, but I assume it's the author of the blog. Someone has offered to send me information about this David Schneiderman. He died in 2004, apparently, as well. That's the other thing. David's. Why do I keep calling him David Schneiderman as well? He's not. He's called Henry Schneiderman. Sorry. In this book, he's called Henry Schneiderman. But I'm reading. I'm sure I've read somewhere else he's called David Schneiderman. Henry Schneiderman. He's been called in this book. So. Yeah, and people's names have been changed in this account as well. That's the other thing. Someone's name, or one of their names has been changed, but it's Robert Fraser. Robert Fraser was the heroin addicted dude I was talking about when I was trying to talk about the trial. Robert Fraser, yeah, he's the one that was. But they're saying people suspected he was weird. The way he was around trying to get into everyone's scene, seemed suspicious, was what the guy was trying to say, I think. But he was into everything. He was even like bisexual. That was what he meant by that. He wasn't just being homophobic. I don't think he was just trying to say, look, he was into everything, like he was trying to get into everyone's scene, which does look like. Yeah, well, this is mental. That's just from fucking reading my Brussels and all that. Sorry, just looking at the chat now. Oh, and I've got another crazy bloody story about Eric Clapton that's related to the time he was sat near Pick Dawson and all that sort of shit that I've got to read out that someone else has found. John Donald said again, the guy who put me onto Billy Doyle's involvement with Mama Cass and it all being in Mama Cass's biography. Has found another thing, from Neil Young's biography. It is. Story about when they got busted. Another weird bust where it seemed very staged and set up. Yeah, read that. There's loads of rumours, isn't there? That fucking every band. There's even one for the Beatles as well. There's one for John Lennon selling his soul and all that sort of shit, isn't there? Yeah, loads. And they sacrificed someone. They all sacrificed someone. Because the Beatles had a drummer before Ringo that died, didn't they? And Brian Jones. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a picture of him sat next to Pick Dawson, isn't there, in Mama Cass's garden? Eric Clapton is sat next to Pick Dawson in Mama Cass's garden. And he was he was doing something with Buffalo Springfield or something, and they all got busted together. Eric Clapton was there when they got busted, and he got arrested. I don't want to blow it because the story is absolutely insane. It just sounds absolutely mental, but it's around the same. And there's more pictures that are obviously from the same day that picture of him with Pick Dawson was taken, because he's wearing the same clothes, but it's in color as well, so you can see the color of the clothes Eric Clapton's wearing. So yeah, I'll get into that in another stream. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that was nothing. That was Angie Bowie. But that doesn't mean that they slept with each other, does it? That just means they fucking fell asleep in the same bed because they were drunk or whatever. Doesn't mean they had sex with each other, does it? And she wanted to take it back as well, didn't she? Joan Rivers fucking wanted us to say it on camera, and she didn't want to say it in the end. So yeah, she knew. That was a libelous thing to say. Yeah, that's definitely probably did. I probably did. That's one of the things I want to talk to Nicholas about. Actually, yeah, it's crazy. This is about. I don't know if something he said when we was having a conversation. I don't know if he wants to talk about it publicly yet. But yeah, it's to do with Led Zeppelin. Oh god, sorry, I've got something in my eyes now. I put sunblock on my face earlier, and I think sunblock's gone in my eyes. So yeah, I'm not possessed. If my eyes start going weird, I'm trying to get sunblock out my eyes. That's it. Everyone slept in the same bed in 1969, but this was after 1969. But I don't know, when did Angie Bowie divorce David Bowie? Fucking hell, must have been what, mid-70s. So yeah. So it was still at that point where they were all still banging each other, innit? Yeah, all still sleeping in the same bed. Performance. You ever watched the film Performance? My god. Yeah. Oh, that's a rumor about everyone. That's right. They say that. Have you heard of Mark Armand as well? There's a rumor of that for Mark Armand too. The blowjob thing. Yeah. Oh, sorry, my eyes are really stinging. I have to get off the screen. It's freaking me out looking at myself blinking like that. Right, and what was the rest I was going to read out? Yeah, I was going to get back to. Yes, and that's the other interesting thing, yes, that I didn't bloody mention, isn't it? Yeah, they tried to bribe the coppers. That's why no one got arrested. They tried to bribe them, but then they heard that they had bribed the wrong people, basically, and they still got summons to court anyway. So Mick Jagger paid them off, but they still fucking came and took him to court anyway. No, right. The trial of Michael Philip Jagger, Keith Richards, and Robert Hugh Fraser began before Judge Block on June 27th. Jagger and Keith weren't about to be intimidated by the court. They both dressed as if they were attending a press conference with journalists from the music magazines. Jagger wore a pale green double-breasted jacket with white buttons, olive green trousers and a floral shirt, and a black striped tie. Keith was dressed in a navy blue frock coat, black military-style trousers, a lace collar, and maroon and black shoes. Jagger's trial was called first. Police testified that they found a small file containing 4 amphetamine tablets in Jagger's jacket, and that he had admitted they were his. My doctor prescribed them, police said he told them. When a policeman had asked him what they were for, Jagger had said, to stay awake and work. The defence called Dr. Raymond Dixon Firth of Knightsbridge, who testified that he had been Jagger's regular physician since July 1965. The doctor testified that sometime before February, Jagger had told him that while he was abroad during a very hectic tour, he'd been given some tablets, some kind of Italian pep pill, to help him pull through the enormous pressures. Is it all right to use them? Jagger asked. The doctor said that he realised from Jagger's description of the tablets that they were amphetamines, and he told Jagger, yes, you may use them in an emergency, but they are not something you should use regularly because they could be dangerous. The doctor testified that so far as he was concerned, Jagger was legally in possession of the pills, since he, the doctor, told Jagger he could have them. He added that if Jagger did not have the amphetamines, he would have prescribed them. In effect, the doctor said in his testimony he had prescribed those tablets. Judge Block made short work of Jagger's sole defence. These remarks cannot be regarded as a prescription, he told the jury. Therefore, I direct you that there is no defence to this charge. The jury returned in 5 minutes and found Jagger guilty of being in unauthorised possession of amphetamines, a crime punishable by a fine and/or imprisonment of up to 2 years. Jagger appeared stunned, his lips set in a harsh line that was no longer sensuous, the lips of a man who's suddenly aged, as the judge revoked his bail and remanded him in custody until after Keith's trial. He was hustled into a grey van with Fraser, whose bail was also revoked because of the seriousness of the heroin possession, and with several other prisoners on remand. A dozen schoolgirls banged their fists against the closed courtyard gates as Jagger sat in the van. The girls screaming, "We want Mick!" tried to climb over the gates, but they couldn't get near Jagger. The van drove him to Lewes Prison, where he was placed in a cell for the night. Marianne went to visit him that evening with Michael. As they approached his cell, Jagger leapt from his cot and rushed forward, and he began to cry. "You've got to get me out of here, Michael," he said. "I don't think I can make it behind bars." "Put yourself together," Marianne said, a little more harshly than she'd intended. But she couldn't help feeling he was indulging in self-pity, and she didn't want to see him like that. "Just try and relax. You'll probably be here only one night, and after Q's trial tomorrow, you'll all be free." Jagger continued to cry through the bars. "I didn't do anything," he said. Michael leaned closer. "I have my camera. Let me get a shot of you behind bars. Give it to the newspapers, and there'll be a tremendous fuss made over it." Jagger wiped his eyes, and Michael shot off a roll of film. It was promptly confiscated by prison officials. That's interesting. So he took photos of him in the prison cell, but they took the film, so we'll never see those pictures because they're really strict about inside prisons and inside courts photographs here. So yeah, you'll never get photos of someone who was inside prison. Unless it's been naughtily leaked. Yeah, so he was sent down because but and that is right though. A doctor saying it's okay to use them is not the same as the doctor writing you a prescription. So yeah, he did have pills that were prescribed to him. But actually sending someone to prison for that as well is overly harsh. You normally wouldn't send that for such a small amount of the pills as well. You know, we're stupid. The rest. Oh, when did it happen? 67, I think. It was all 67, and they weren't arrested. Well, is this this event that you're talking about? Yeah. Yes, that was all I was going to read out tonight. And I'm up to an hour now anyway. Yeah, so now we can just discuss it. So that's great. Yeah, but I will read out the rest. I'll probably do a Wednesday night stream to read out the rest. Yeah, very wacky situation. Let's look at one of these photos as well. Yeah, because I can show you the photos of the court case. I think. Where is it? Oh, there's more photos of Redlands here, though. That's on the screen now. There we go. There, that's him going to get legal advice. Keith Richards in the taxi on the way to get legal advice. It's here just him being photographed outside Redlands for that thing. Look at them. I think this is as they go into court. No, so this can't be, because that's not the outfits that were just described, is it? He was wearing a long coat, so I don't know what. Let's go back to the book to see when this was exactly. This must be when they've been released. Yeah, from the way they're smiling, I assume it's when they've been released. Marianne Faithfull. Oh, that's Marianne Faithfull arriving at court as well. Yeah, the only picture of her arriving at the court, but you can see her there. Yeah. And so walking out of the court, isn't it? Right, yeah, because this woman's blog is all about pictures of Marianne Faithfull and Anita Pallenberg. First, if you like photos like this, if you're into it, right, she's got a whole list of other blogs that are taking photos of a similar era and that sort of thing. I think he looks like Beavis. No, he doesn't look like Beavis. You can't say he looks like Beavis. No one's got a mouth quite like Mick Jagger, have they? Well, fucking hell, who does he look like? Yeah, let me go back to the blog so I can find out exactly when those pictures were. That looks like when they've been released. That's got to be on there. Seeking legal advice. May 10th, outside Redlands. May 10th at the Chichester Magistrates Court. So yeah, this must be as they're going in. But that doesn't sound like the outfits that were just described in the books that I read out. They said he was wearing Keith Richards was wearing a long frock coat. And he's not. So maybe they were full of shit. Because that isn't a frock coat. Look at that. That's not a frock coat. I'm sure that's what it said. So no, this must be as they're going into court. Or like there's been some sort of recess and they're allowed out for a cigarette break or whatever. So after. But no, well, Jagger got taken to prison after the first day of the trial. Jagger and the other guy got taken off to prison. So Jagger didn't walk out after the first day. Well, it was May 10th after then. Oh, God. Yeah, I can't even remember all the fucking dates. But that does not look like the day of the court case. So I reckon that's when they came out of the prison. Yeah. That's when they were released. Because, yeah, that's not the outfits they was wearing when they walked into court. And there are actually newspaper articles as well from the time. I'll show them on another stream as well. I can find. Yeah, the Guardian's actually got them up online now. And there's loads of stuff on the National Archive. I'd like to go into it since I'm covering social history now. It's mainly Keith Richards and Anita Pallenberg, I think, that were bringing the cases. But there's loads of cases against the press and the police. The police as well. I think it's Anita Pallenberg and Keith Richards mainly. But yeah, just to see what they were getting pissed off with the police about would be interesting because they were harassed unfairly a lot. These people, because the offences they were committing were minor. They didn't deserve the penalties they were getting really. But then there was some crazy stuff like gun offences for Keith Richards. But we didn't have such strict gun laws then. He's lucky now. Because if that had happened now, then they would have got years and years in prison. But our gun laws changed after the Dunblane thing happened. And so now it's like 10 years if you even have a gun, whether you've got ammo or not, and all this sort of shit. Yeah. It's like, yeah, fucking crazy. And the only way you can have a gun is if it's a shotgun for pest control and you've got a license to have it. So you've got to be a farmer or you've got to be a licensed pest control person or something. And no one gets a license to have a handgun. You have to be fucking James Bond to have a license to have a handgun in this country, basically. Or a police officer. Police officers are allowed to carry them. Did they plead? I think they pled guilty to everything. Yeah. Yeah, I've not got to Keith's trial yet. I've only done Mick's, haven't I? Yeah. But I was amused by the fact he cried so much, yeah. And Marianne Faithfull said, "Pull yourself together, fucking pussy." One night, and Mick Jagger spent longer than any of the others. I think he must have, because he spent the first night. So I think he spent 2 nights in prison. So yeah, he had the worst time. But yeah, we'll get to it as well. He was the fucking librarian of the prison by the fucking next day. So he took over the prison as soon as he moved in there. So he sat there crying like that, and then fucking was fine anyway. But that amused me. That Marion said, "Oh, fucking pull yourself together, you pussy." Hmm. It depends how famous they are. It depends how famous they are. Because you remember recently, Nigella Lawson had that problem, but she still got into America. That's like in our recent history. Well, Glasgow Dave will know who Nigella Lawson is, but do you Americans? Obviously, she must be a TV. She's a TV chef, very posh English woman, and she does innuendo quite a lot. But she was done for cocaine possession in the UK, and they nearly refused her entry to America, but then didn't. They let her in the end, didn't they? So I think it depends how famous you are, basically, and how likely you are to be an uncontrollable drug user, basically. And so it would depend on your record. And these guys don't have record because they've got no arresting convictions and shit, have they? So they couldn't say they have a criminal record. Yeah. Yes. No, this is earlier in the day. Yeah, I haven't because, like I say, I could read out so much. This is why I've had to do this in 2 parts. But no, apparently they talk about the original motorcade coming down. They drove down to the Redlands, and George Harrison and his wife did come. Yeah, and they were there, but they left the night before. And then in the morning, everyone got given acid again, and they were all just messing about. Yeah. But yeah, George Harrison was there, but they left before the bust happened. Yeah. Yeah, well, apparently Lennon was in a situation where if he left America, they wouldn't let him back in again. That was why he stayed in New York for so much as long as he did. Because if he left, then they wouldn't let him back in again, basically, for those reasons. Yeah, and that's another situation to go into. Yeah, and I'm going to also talk about because I didn't realize he'd written a memoir as well, and he just died in 2020. The guy who busted all these people was it Pilcher, Norman Pilcher, the copper's called, famous copper. I can cover him as well. But yeah, and he also busted John Lennon, and they reckon when he says Semolina Pilchards in "I Am the Walrus," they're referring to Pilcher. Yeah. Yeah, she was known for cocaine possession. That's enough. That's enough, isn't it? It was in the press. That was enough. Yeah, the America, Australia's worse apparently. Ironically, yeah, because fucking you look at the crime in Australia. Jesus Christ, yeah, but no, they're funny as fuck. If you have any sort of criminal thing in Australia, is worse. They won't let you in. Hmm. Yeah, was he the one who busted Donovan? Yeah, he busted Donovan, and yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trouble like a fish one. Man, you should have seen them kicking a gorilla and pole. Yeah. No, that's at the beginning. At the beginning, as they were busting them, they told them to turn the music down, but they changed it from the Who to "Rainy Day Women" by Bob Dylan. Yeah. So apparently, "Rainy Day Women" was playing as they was initially getting busted. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they can. They can. And Nigella's admitted to letting her kids use drugs in her presence and everything. And she's been outed by a nanny for allowing her kids to smoke weed and stuff like that, hasn't she? But no, it's been fucking. It's known that she's has taken drugs. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. They didn't refuse Prince Harry entry, did they? Either. No, that's it. Yeah. Hmm. Well, that'll be an interesting one as well. Oh my God! There's Timothy Leary's FBI file is huge as well. He's got a 200-page FBI file. I'd love to read that. All of that. We've got so much to read. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it? Yeah, that he was an MK Ultra one, but no, not really. But there's some weird thing about him. He was involved with the Yippies, which is a weird thing. I didn't know that. And he is supposed to have seen a psychiatrist that's um, connected to them. And yeah, just if you listen to interviews of the guy talking about the thoughts going through his head as he was waiting to do it and all that, it does sound really weird. Yeah, like he was programmed in some way. Very odd. Yeah, Howard Marks. Oh, I don't really like Howard Marks that much, though. I kind of don't feel that sorry for him. Yeah, that's it. We should do a massive fucking hangout on the Isle of Wight. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, she covered the Lennon thing, yeah. So I think Russ, the guy I originally founded this channel with, he used to do tours of New York in a limousine, and he would take you to the Dakota building apparently. And there's a plaque on the wall where John Lennon was shot. And that weirdly, the same spot is where the woman lands when she jumps off the front of the Dakota building in Rosemary's Baby. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. A few other people. Was it Jolly on West? I don't think it was Jolly West. He's not one that saw Jolly West, is he? But Jolly West saw Ciran and Jack Ruby. But he's not the one. Sorry, I hit the wrong comment there. I meant that one. Yeah, but they say he saw a psychiatrist that's supposed to have been linked to the CIA. But this is all fucking really tenuous. That's not evidence of anything. You know what I mean? It's just tragic. I think it was just I think he's just called Mark Chapman, isn't he? Yeah. Mark Chapman, and he sounds like he just was an attention seeker. Basically, he wanted to be famous for something, basically. And he used a hollow point bullet as well, which is quite sadistic. Yeah, horrible. He had no chance, and you can find an interview with the surgeon who operated on him, and he describes the injuries. He said we operated on him, and like every vein going into his heart was damaged basically by the bullet because it was a hollow point bullet. So when it went into him, it shattered inside him and ripped him apart, obviously. And they just could not fix all the roots into his heart were destroyed, and so he just died. They couldn't save him. Horrible. And he only shot him once, but really close with a hollow point bullet. Yeah, Ciran is weird as hell. Yeah, and that's Jolly on West. He's like really heavily connected to all the MK Ultra stuff and that. Yeah. 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 Oh, each other had the same last month. Yeah. No, so you just got to go and search the archive site, the FBI archive site. There's loads of them. Yeah. Hollow point bullets are considered a war crime, but they're also standard US police ammo. Yeah. Yeah, he had the copy of Catcher in the Rye with him, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Nice Rosemary's Baby. Not much of it is actually filmed at the Dakota, though. That's actually kind of a myth, right? The only bits that are filmed at the Dakota building are the front of the building when the woman jumps off, and there's one corridor. One corridor was used, apparently. That's all that's actually of the Dakota building. The apartments and everything, that's all a set. Everything else was a set. There's one corridor and the front of the building, and that's all that was used. But apparently Russ knew the doorman, and so he could get. Then they would take us up to the corridor that was used, so we could have seen the corridor that they used. But it's one corridor, and the front of the building is all that's actually used with the Dakota building and Rosemary's Baby. That apparently, yeah, if you visit the building, you can see the spot where Lennon fell, and if you watch the scene from Rosemary's Baby, it's quite obvious. Yeah, the woman hits the ground really near where Lennon was shot. But it's also not that weird because if you look at the framing of the building, if you're a cinematographer fucking trying to frame the building, that's right by the entrance of the building. And so actually it makes sense that they would frame it so she dropped there, and it's not that weird that. And John Lennon was trying to walk into the entrance, so it's not that weird that he was there when he got shot as well. Don't like the baseball books. I couldn't get through it, and I'm a big literature person, right? So I usually like books like that, and obviously knowing that it's supposed to have inspired the guy to kill John Lennon, but no, I didn't like Catcher in the Rye. I really didn't. I thought what a load of bollocks. I agree with Brian Griffin from Family Guy on that one. Yeah, he sounded like a spoiled brat, little shit. Yeah, and it's a really short book as well, isn't it? But I couldn't get through it. Didn't like him. Didn't like the character. Hmm. Right. Well, I'm going to go to an after stream now because, like I say, I'm going to go to the next thing, and I think we're just randomly chatting now. But yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. Like I say, think about the membership thing, and if you're interested in that, if you would like the emojis, basically, would that amuse you enough to be worth it? And also, people can gift memberships and stuff like that. So, like, someone can just randomly give away memberships, and because we have such a small chat room, I reckon it could be fun for people if they want to do it. But it's really up to you if you want to do it or not. Yeah. No, he wasn't Don. No, he was shot once. He was shot once, and it was a hollow point bullet. That was what was so destructive. He only fired the gun once, though. Yeah. And that's the crazy thing was John Lennon spoke to him twice. We'll get into this in the after stream because we're going way off the point now. We're talking about John Lennon getting shot. What? I'm looking. Wait a minute. Right, I'm going to end this now, and I'll start an after stream in a minute. We'll carry on. We're talking about John Lennon. No, but I've got to address this. People saying, but someone's saying he was shot 5 times in the back. I'm sure he was shot once, and I'll try and prove this in the after stream. I'm sure it was only once. It was just because it was a hollow point bullet. He wasn't shot a lot of times. But there are conspiracy theorists. There are conspiracy theories about whether it was really Mark Chapman who did it, or whether it was a guy who was stood by the door. And there's a photo of Mark Chapman with him just before he did it, and all that. And there's conspiracy theories about it. But no, we'll fact check this because that's doing my head in now. No, I'm sure he was actually only shot once. He was just badly damaged by the hollow point bullet. And I'm pretty sure it was the front of him, not the back, that he was shot in. Yeah, we'll look it up in the after stream. Anyway, I'll end it now. Thanks for coming, and yeah, hang around for the after stream, yeah.